Jacq, are you telling me you're watching TikToks of Lance Stroll?
No, I follow all of the Formula One teams that have a TikTok. On my For You page, like, it'll pop up. Mm. But I haven't been watching ones of Stroll. I forgot even
so
followed
when you
Aston
can't
Martin.
sleep at night, just scroll over to the Aston Martin page.
Don't talk to me right now.
Watch Lance.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Grid Gals. We're here with episode 16 and a special guest.
The Grid Gals' first ever guest.
Ow, ow! Woo! Maria, how about you introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hello, I'm Maria. I am Catherine's roommate. And I kind of got coerced into watching the good old Drive to Survive, and here we are, now watching the races, and excited to be on the pod.
Coerced?
She's being kind. I almost bullied her into watching Drive to Survive. You could almost call it.
Every time I started a new show, I would get kind of a death glare of, yet you still haven't started Drive to Survive.
But was it enjoyable? Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did like it.
She binged it.
Yeah, it was good. I do like sports in general, so I feel like I liked it, but it was to hear all the stories, it was a good, fascinating show. I liked it.
And the driver that you're backing is? Ooh. She's been waffling, so as we've been watching.
I mean,
yeah.
Hey, Queen of the Waffles over here, girl. I feel you. It took me a while.
I think Checo is my top driver.
Great choice.
Oh, Catherine probably had no influence over that decision.
I didn't. I was very unbiased when giving my commentary on all the drivers.
Yeah, I doubt that. But
Danny Rick's favorite personality, but Checo, I like a performance driver, so I like someone on a top team. Sorry, I love Danny Rick, but
Checo
just staggered straight to my heart. I was all hyped because for the first time, I mean, we all know I'm going to go on a monologue here in a little bit, but Maria, why you gotta do me like that?
See, Maria now has to watch all the races with me, so I have someone to back me up.
I mean, I do like Checo.
we love Checo here on Grid Gals. We've been very complimentary of him.
he's been a little controversy lately in the news, but
Oh.
I mean, after
should we debrief the Checo drama?
Yeah, we didn't last episode, and I'm kind of surprised.
Honestly, I think we just forgot. I think we were so
We get caught up.
well. We were doing the beginner's guide and not a race debrief, so we were
That's
a little
true.
removed from the day to day.
That's true. So I guess people that have been on Instagram, maybe following some YouTube clips, might have seen Checo was caught up in a little bit of drama after Monaco, his win. There was a wild party. I don't know that anything actually happened, but there are videos that made it look like something might have happened between him and someone else that was not his wife. But I believe in Checo. I think he's a loyal guy.
And for our listeners who are not intimately familiar with the Perez family drama, which is probably most of you, this is especially controversial because Checo's wife was not in Monaco with him celebrating because she was back in Mexico due to the fact that she had literally just given birth about a week prior to his youngest son. So to have allegations of inappropriate behavior on the heels of the birth of his child is not the best look for, honestly, one of our favorite drivers.
Yeah, and there were some videos of him very, very intoxicated, leaving a party. But I feel like, when have we not been there? When have any of us not, been... Yeah. I wouldn't want videos of me leaving,
Oh, God, no. I mean...
I don't know that I necessarily look as bad as that, but...
I've never won the Monaco Grand Prix, which I've heard the parties in Monaco are legendary. So, as somebody who was at a wedding this past weekend and did imbibe a tad, I'm glad that I'm not a national celebrity whose every move is being captured and broadcasted. I can imagine there are some unflattering videos of myself out there,
Yeah, I think who's to say, right? We saw one couple different videos. there are probably, you know, something could have happened, something very well might not have happened. It didn't look great, but I mean, I'm not going to pass judgment on him at this time, right? Like,
and he shut it down really quickly.
He did.
He made an Instagram post and said, we're not going to speak of it ever again, and that was it, so.
Not only did he shut it down, he did apologize and take responsibility, saying, you know what, this wasn't my best moment, which I thought was very classy to do, of not just brushing it under the rug, but taking responsibility for it, whether or not anything happened. And also, I know we've spoken about the fact that I feel like F1 is a masterclass in PR. The fact that, like, there was something, right? But there's, like, almost nothing out there about it.
No.
You know? Mm-mm. So that's how you can tell whoever these media managers are, they're on their shit. Like,
and on lock.
Yeah. I feel like even just a couple years ago, it could have obviously blown up into something really nasty, even if there wasn't actually anything that happened. I feel like it's so easy to just manipulate specific images and make a story, even if there may not be one. But I'm always impressed with the PR around F1.
And after, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, after the performance in this race weekend, like, isn't Checo in second for the Drivers' Championship?
Yes.
Sure is.
All right, Maria, I see you over there, girl. I see you. Okay, respect.
Well, Maria spoiled it, so she opened her Instagram before we could watch the race. Although I will give her credit, I did wake her up very early on a Sunday to watch the race. It wasn't when it actually aired, but 8:30 was an early wake up.
I mean, the race aired at 6 a.m. Central Time. That's a bit aggressive.
I wasn't going to require a 6 a.m. wake up.
There are limits to being a good roommate.
Would have bowed out of this recording if that was the case. Not happening.
Thanks for waking up ungodly early and joining us today.
No problem.
So we will be recapping Jack's favorite race,
Baku!
and a lot happened. Baku showed up because Baku was full of drama last year, and I think it still was pretty drama filled.
I feel like the drama all had a theme, and it makes me sad, but we'll get to that.
I think we might be able to skip over practice. I feel like there wasn't a lot that happened in practice. All right, start with Q1.
Let her rip.
So Q1 was probably the most dramatic. Stroll. I don't know, Jacq, do you want to summarize Stroll?
Well, to no one's surprise, Stroll crashed.
Twice.
Not once, but twice, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, at this point, it's getting a little bit embarrassing. I mean, it already was embarrassing, but, like, come on, my dude. Come on, my guy. What are we doing?
It is a bad look because he barely tapped the barriers to begin with, and then just within the same lap, I think, or the next lap, he completely crashed his car.
And this comes off of, like, he didn't fully crash in Monaco, but he was one of the two drivers that crashed. Him and Latifi were out on, when they had originally started the race, before they brought everyone back in, had hit the barrier.
Right. And his crash caused a lot of chaos because there was only, like, 2 minutes, 30 seconds left. Everyone was trying to get their flying lap in, so there are a lot of cars that didn't get to do their last flying lap.
And that's critical, right? Like, a lot of drivers count on that last lap, and not saying it might, I mean, who's to say it could have altered the results, but that's just always so frustrating, especially when you know you didn't hit the times there at the pace that you need to, and you're in those critical elimination zones.
All because of the walking red flag that is Lance Stroll. Or driving red flag? I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe.
Man needs to check his mirrors.
I think the one kind of disappointment was, for the first time ever in F1, Mick Schumacher qualified 20th.
Oh.
But that was the first time he's ever qualified back of the grid. And so maybe it's kind of like because him and Vettel have such a relationship.
Yes, I know,
I definitely have a soft spot for Mick, but
That's exactly why.
that is 100% why.
Let's not
But
pretend.
speaking of Vettel, here's the plug. He was doing fantastic in Q1. He was up in 5th. Ultimately didn't end up there for the final results of qualifying. But when the red flag came out for Stroll, he was in 5th. So I'm really proud of him for getting that Aston Martin up there.
He did really great, and then did you see Bottas? Because Bottas almost didn't make it into Q2.
That's a couple times now for him just barely scraping by into Q2.
So he continued to streak 144 qualifying within Q2.
Whoop whoop!
Or above.
I know. I'm going to be so sad when that streak finally gets broken, and knock on wood, it's not this season.
I know, I hope not. We are big Bottas fans.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there are a couple of fan favorites on this podcast, and so far it's definitely Bottas and Checo. I feel like we can, all of us, all 3 and now 4, agree on that.
I think the last dramatic incident on track was when they restarted after Stroll's crash. Alonso was holding up the pack, and Albon accused him of going off track in order to, I guess, slow down the rest of the cars so that they couldn't qualify and get in the last flying lap.
Did Williams report that to the FIA, or is that just like an accusation on social media?
I think so. Well, it was in their interviews.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was one. I couldn't believe Albon was even saying that to a driver.
Yeah, pretty ballsy.
As experienced as Alonso, but I could see Alonso doing that. I feel like he's a little sneaky.
I mean, he did that with Hamilton all throughout Monaco. I mean, it was during the race, so he had every right to do that, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, Alonso knows what he's doing. I don't think he does things on accident.
No, he knows how to play the game.
He's intentional about what he does, so...
Wait. Where was Alonso at the end of Q1? Was he on the edge? Because...
No, Alonso had already put in a flying lap and was safely into Q2.
Where was Ocon? Do you think he did it for his teammate?
Ocon ended up in 13th, so it could have... I don't know.
Maybe.
I kind of want to go watch that back now. Interesting.
Yeah, because you see him go in the same spot where Hamilton went off in Baku at the restart. And
Turn 4?
Yeah.
That turn, man. I mean, even this race, we saw a ton of instances where people were having a tough time at turn 4.
Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves because, yes, there are so many... Oh, God, Baku. Quali.
I know we talked about Bottas, but I thought in Q2, one of the interesting things was Zhou Guanyu out-qualified Bottas, and which is heartbreaking, a little spoiler here, because he's been having, and this might speak a little bit to Bottas's performance, a lot of trouble with his car. I think this is like the 3rd or 4th DNF where they had to retire, and it doesn't seem like it's driver related. So I'm interested I think they're just having difficulty with the cars.
Well, I think it might be a Ferrari issue in general.
It definitely is, and let's finish up quality before we just rip my heart right
because
open.
the McLarens did so well compared to what they have been doing.
Yeah, talk about your papaya boys.
Well, if you watched Fun Fact Friday, you would have learned that for Baku particularly, qualifying well isn't the end all be all. There's a lot of opportunities to pass on the track. The track is the fastest circuit in F1. And we did see a lot of that happen. And so McLaren didn't particularly qualify well. They were 11th and 12th, didn't make it through to Q3. However, that wasn't necessarily the end all be all, right? Like there was still an opportunity to race. It wasn't the greatest result. Of course, I would have wanted at least one of them. I was kind of shocked by Lando being down so far. Usually he does still do well, even though I know they've been having trouble with the car this season. It was interesting though that they didn't quite make it into Q3.
It was good, though, to see that Daniel was at least close to Lando. Mm-hmm. I feel like for so much of the season, Lando has really pulled ahead, and to see them next to each other.
Because then it seems more like a performance issue with the car versus the drivers.
And as we talked about on an earlier episode, we know that Ricciardo is definitely feeling some pressure from the team to perform. And so his performance against Lando's, I'm sure, is under the microscope lately.
I did find out that the opt-out clause is only something that he can trigger.
Oh, really?
So he's safe, essentially, unless he decides he wants to go to a different team. So I think there was some speculation online about, McLaren potentially dropping him, but at least looking at his contract, that can't be the case, but still pressure, right? You don't want to be performing that much worse than your teammate.
Yeah. I think the final dramatic item in Q2 was Hamilton and Russell, which I'm not sure which car reported this, but Hamilton was driving what they said was unnecessarily slow, so Russell could catch up to him to give him the slipstream, so Hamilton could qualify higher.
I mean, honestly, I 100% believe that.
And a lot of people do that. A lot of teams do that
Yeah.
as part of strategy. But I think Hamilton was reported to the FIA for driving unnecessarily slow to wait up for Russell, and that
really?
caused traffic issues.
Well, it was interesting because I noted that Vettel had a very good qualifying performance. I did hear some commentary around the fact that they thought that his initial performance in Q1 prior to the red flag was due to a slipstream, an unintentional one. It's not like Lance Stroll, the man who crashed, was giving him a slipstream, but they think he just caught somebody else's. And it's kind of crazy how much a slipstream can impact your results.
Yeah, but Hamilton in general, I think even the commentators caught on with how negative he was being. They said that they've never heard him this negative on the radios ever. And I think we'll recap the race, but it seemed like he was in quite a bit of pain in the car. We definitely saw it in his performance.
Well, I've heard that the porpoising, especially in Mercedes, has been a huge struggle for the drivers this year. And I know even other teams, like Kevin Magnussen, somebody was saying that he has suffered nerve damage from some of the porpoising in the Haas.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I knew it was a problem, and obviously I knew it was uncomfortable, but I don't think I fully understood the magnitude of how bad it was and how much it was impacting the drivers.
Well, do you want to explain porpoising for anyone who doesn't know?
Sure. So porpoising is named that because porpoise being another name for a dolphin. When you think of the way a dolphin swims, a lot of ups and downs, kind of bouncing through the water almost, it's that bouncing movement on the track. And part of that's due to the new car design this year in 2022. There have been a lot of changes. And again, I'm not super technical, I'm not an engineer, but the new design of the cars has really proved to be a challenge for the teams to control how they move on the track when they're going that fast. And with the speeds during qualifying and during race sessions, the car will literally be bouncing on the track. There's not a whole lot separating the drivers aside from the seat really, and they're feeling the road. And so when they're bouncing that heavily, I know George Russell has complained, he's one of the taller drivers too, so I'm not sure if that plays into it, that it can be intensely painful and, not only uncomfortable, I think we have all driven a car at one point or another in our lives that's kind of a shitty car, and you can feel the road and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not the smoothest drive, right? You can feel it, it's kind of a crappy car. But when you're going that fast, that close to the ground, and you're bouncing that much.
Yeah, because there's not a lot that keeps the driver actually from hitting the ground. There's not that much car.
Yeah, exactly. And so porpoising, as it's called, it has been a real concern this year, not only for the performance and race results, but for driver comfort and honestly, driver health at this point.
Yeah, they showed a few camera angles that were pretty, especially Hamilton's, were super shaky from internal. And I was like, that looks very uncomfortable.
Yeah, those helmet cams, which...
Yeah.
I mean, they've had some newer camera angles the last couple of years, but I think the helmet cams are actually new this year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. That looks horrible.
Awful.
Yeah.
I feel like, Mary, maybe you should summarize Q3.
So, qualifying-wise, great day to be a Ferrari fan. Carlos Sainz ended up in 4th. He had a flying lap that looked incredibly promising, ultimately backed off at the end, did not take pole position. However, Charles Leclerc did take pole, making him the first person to ever have more than one pole in Baku. Again, thank you, Jacq, for the Fun Fact Friday. There have never been repeat winners in Baku, but there is now a repeat pole holder, aka Charles Leclerc, and this actually makes his 6th consecutive pole. So clearly, Leclerc is very good at qualifying. We'll get to the heartbreak later, but
yeah, I was gonna say converting that.
He goes fast.
Yeah.
Let's go fast. He's consistent. He goes really fast.
And Red Bull showed up too.
Red Bull
He's
did
growing
show
on
up.
me.
He's growing on me too.
Charles
Leclerc.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. How can you not? How can you not love him a little bit?
After watching the show, I like the Red Bull team dynamic better and team principle. But I do like both Ferrari drivers. I don't care for that Italian man. I'm blanking on his name.
Ferrari's principal?
Bonotto?
Yeah.
I do not care for that Italian man.
He's much less of a media personality.
Yeah.
I feel like especially with the last couple of years, Christian Horner from Red Bull and Toto Wolff from Mercedes have kind of stolen the spotlight in terms of team principals. I think Zach Brown at McLaren is also very visible, but yeah, Ferrari, there's a lot more focus internally, I think. He's less of a media personality, if you will.
But good drivers.
Great drivers.
Both teams neck and neck.
We still love them.
Yeah.
I feel like there wasn't that much more in Q3, so maybe we can move on to the actual race.
Yeah, let's just get it over with. This was a rough one to be a Ferrari fan. So, although it looked very promising with Charles Leclerc starting on pole, we had Sainz on the second row, the two Red Bulls in between them. We did have some Mercedes up near the front. Gasly started.
Shout out
P6.
Gasly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Great race for him.
He started 6th. Catherine, you want to run through the rest of the grid?
Sure thing.
We should also probably note where everybody ended up before we get into the full debrief. But spoiler alert for any Ferrari fans out there, that power unit.
Bad day.
I've got thoughts. I'm sad.
Bad day for the engine.
I feel like Ferrari fans are where Red Bull fans were like 3 or 4 races ago.
Bad day to be a prancing pony, you know?
All right, so race results. From the bottom up, we have Carlos Sainz for Ferrari and Charles Leclerc for also Ferrari.
Rip.
Big
My
rip.
hopes and dreams.
Pour one out for the boys.
So those were both DNFs, as well as Zhou Guanyu, Kevin Magnussen, and Stroll.
And for the folks at home counting, of the 5 DNFs, 4 Ferrari power units are represented there. So it's not looking great. And if you're curious about what a power unit is and what it takes to replace it, you can check out our last episode where we debriefed that, because changing it up is not without penalty. So that's a big hit this season.
Although, I think Carlos Sainz, they said, was a hydraulic issue.
They did.
Which
yes.
I don't know where that really fits into the car, but...
Yeah, I don't have any details on hydraulics and what that means, believe it or not. Again, nobody lets me in on these team secrets. I'm still shocked.
I think overall, we've had a lot of DNFs this season. I think it speaks to the fact that the cars did go through so many changes, and the teams are still just trying to figure it out. But a lot more DNFs than we normally see this time of the season. 5? And I mean, pretty consistently, we've had at least 1 or 2 every race.
Well,
if not
I think
more.
what's shocking about the DNFs at Baku, because we've seen plenty of DNFs at Baku, usually it's more incident related.
Right.
Yeah.
None of these were racing incidents. These were all purely mechanical failures.
Yeah.
Which has been the majority of the DNFs this season. Like, I mean, there have been incidents, but like, not, I mean, and that's probably why there are so many DNFs, but.
So after the DNFs, we have Latifi, who finished 15th with Williams, Mick Schumacher, who finished 14th with Haas, Yuki Tsunoda, who finished 13th with AlphaTauri, Alex Albon, who finished 12th with Williams, Valtteri Bottas, who finished 11th with Alfa Romeo, and then we move to the top 10. In 10th, we have Esteban Ocon with Alpine. In 9th, we have Lando Norris with McLaren. In 8th, we have Daniel Ricciardo, also with McLaren.
Woo-woo!
Have a happy gal over here.
Points, baby! Points!
Much needed.
So in 7th, we have Fernando Alonso with Alpine. In 6th, we have another happy gal here with Sebastian Vettel.
What?
For Aston Martin. In 5th, we have Pierre Gasly with AlphaTauri. In 4th, we have Lewis Hamilton with Mercedes. And now for our podium finish, we have George Russell. In 3rd with Mercedes, we have Checo Perez. In 2nd with Red Bull.
Yay!
And first, we have Max Verstappen, also with Red Bull.
I just want to say, before we recap the results, it all makes sense now. We were chit-chatting a little bit, and we were like, we should bring a guest on this podcast. And Catherine's like, I have the perfect first person to come on the podcast. And you know how Catherine always feels ganged up on? She invited someone who was full support for Red Bull, so she just felt like she had someone else on her side.
Listen, I could have brought my family, okay?
Yeah, I liked when you were talking about watching a race with your family and you're like, I was the only supporter. And then you're like, actually, my entire family loves Red Bull, except for my brother, who weirdly loves Latifi. Which David's still not over that. So.
I'll be honest, I don't even know who that is.
Honestly, Maria, you probably don't need to.
He crashes a lot.
He does, yeah. He's
Lance Stroll 2.0?
They're both Canadian, yeah.
And they're both pay-to-play drivers.
Oh. And we have the Canadian GP up next, so I wonder if our Canadian boys are going to show up for that. Probably not, but you know.
Probably not.
Back to Baku.
I did see a fun fact, though, that after this race, Aston Martin's now tied with Haas.
Hell yeah.
So.
Let's fucking go. That's all Vettel.
That
Which
Stroll's
actually-
helping that out, but
Vettel has always done really well in Baku. Honestly.
He has.
Yeah.
He has.
And with him finishing 6th, that's the best finish he's had so far. So I'll take it. And thank God for some good news, because a double Ferrari DNF was just, that was painful.
And that was early.
Yes.
Lap 9.
I know. I was watching. So full spoiler alert, I did not watch the race on time. I watched it on Monday, and one of my coworkers like pinged me this morning and was like, "What happened to your boys this weekend?" And I was like, "No spoilers, no spoilers. They haven't watched it yet." So I was primed for heartbreak, which made it not any easier. It was still terrible. Because you're just like, come on. I mean, to see Sainz, first of all, go into the runoff at first, because there were a couple of legitimate lockups. So actually, you know what? Let me rewind. That's where I'll start. The first heartbreak, Charles Leclerc, starting on pole, right? The vibes are immaculate. Sure. We go into turn 1. Immediate lockup. Checo gets out in front. Checo takes the lead. Checo runs away with the fucking lead, okay? So we're already feeling a little not great. But you know what? We've got Leclerc. He's holding second. He's keeping Verstappen behind him because Verstappen was making some moves. Okay. Defending against Max. Great. Carlos is right there in 4th. Okay. You know, this race can be salvaged. Baku is known for getting a little spicy. So I'm like, okay. Well, we got 51 laps to go. And then we have Sainz just go into the runoff, and at first I'm like, oh my god, it's another lockup, which sometimes happens, and like maybe you can reverse it, get back out on the track. Actually, that happened to Vettel later in the race.
that was pretty impressive.
I know, he was overtaking and then just locked up. I mean, he eventually made those places up.
One fan at a time.
One fan at a time, yes. So anyway, Carlos Sainz in the runoff area, and I'm like, okay, back it up, boys. Let's go. Not all hope is lost, right? Maybe it's a lockup. Maybe it's salvageable. Absolutely not. There's smoke coming out. Game over. Game over for Sainz. Okay, so one of the Ferraris has retired from the race, which, considering Sainz has already had 2 DNFs this season, very disappointing. But, okay, salvageable. Leclerc's still in second. We're still feeling okay. It's not a terrible day to be a Ferrari fan. Yet. And then the fucking power unit.
Yeah, and that was only lap 22.
I know, and it starts like huge plumes of smoke out of the back of the red car, and you're like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding. 2 DNFs before halfway through the race. Couldn't even make it halfway. It's not a good look. It is not a good look. And then to have Zhou Guanyu and Kevin Magnussen, who are also racing with Ferrari power units, also DNF due to engine failures.
Yep, I was going to say lap 23 and lap 33.
Yeah, not even that far into it.
It was a bummer.
It was a good day to be a Red Bull fan, though.
Yeah, sure was. Sure was.
Even as a Jacq fan, I was sad about the Ferraris. I will admit. It's hard to see top drivers, like neither of the drivers qualify, because then they don't get points at all. One of them would have definitely, I think, gotten points for the team, and yeah, it's tough to see.
Mm-hmm. Although, how did you feel as a Checo fan watching the start of that race? I mean, I was devastated personally, but I had to feel good.
I was happy for him. But then I was like, this whole Max and Checo, they're so close in points. I'm like, who are they going to let take the lead here? Even in the championship, I'm like, they're neck and neck. Like, will they let Checo win it if he's doing well? I don't know. Did they end up saying anything about if they let Max go ahead for this race or not?
So there was a radio message to Checo to not fight with Max, which I feel like was just, I don't know if that's necessarily team orders to let him by, or if they knew Max's pace was faster. But I think we saw at the end of the race that Max was much faster. He was 20 seconds ahead of everyone.
Yeah.
He had a good race, for sure.
There was a lot of surprise that Checo didn't have more pace than he did. I mean, clearly performed well, got second, but it was surprising to see such a gap.
Yeah, he took a big lead. Max did.
Because at one point, they even just stopped showing Max. We were watching and
Yeah.
they're like, what's going on in the midfield?
Like,
Which I
nothing
love
to
though,
see
because
here.
it is fun to see like those better battles when someone that's leading that far ahead.
Max was still having issues with the car as well, which, for considering how much of a lead he had, towards the end of the race, they told him to not use DRS because the rear wing issues that have been plaguing him all season, I think, were acting up again, and they just did a calculation that he could have used it to pass the drivers that he was lapping, which, I mean, clearly he was in a very comfortable spot. And they basically were saying we don't want to risk any issues just because you're lapping people, so don't use DRS. The big DRS drama, though, was Yuki Tsunoda.
And I think that's why they told Max to watch it because, I mean, it's a sister team. I'm sure Red Bull's worried about their cars if they see something go wrong with AlphaTauri. But yeah,
Was that
Yuki.
the janky tape job?
that was the janky tape job.
I have never seen that. That honestly was kind of hilarious, I'm not going to lie.
And
Pull out the
Jacq-
masking tape.
Yep. Jacq, did you see what flag they used on Yuki?
No.
It was the black and orange.
Oh, man.
So the FIA actually called Yuki back into the pits for them to fix the wing.
It makes sense if it was an actual hazard.
I don't know. I feel like the FIA is just kind of...
So what happened with Yuki's rear wing was that when he was in a DRS zone and attempted to use DRS to open the flap of the rear wing, it split. And so he had a split. It almost looked like right down the middle of his rear wing. And I know the FIA was concerned because I'm sure they were worried about the possibility of carbon fibers being spread across the track, potential debris, or even depending on the amount of air pressure, if the wing ripped and then you'd have a huge piece of wing fly off on the track, which, considering it's a street circuit, could be very dangerous. And so he went into the pits, and it was kind of really funny to watch. The AlphaTauri team basically just like duct taped his wing back together.
I know, because Maria turned to me when
So
we were watching
funny.
this, and she was like, is that what they're supposed to do? And I'm like, I don't think so.
I've never seen that.
Which sucks for Yuki because he was on pace to have one of his best performances of his career at
Yeah.
that race. Like, really heartbreaking. I mean, Gasly was doing very well for how he has been performing this season. But yeah, it kind of stinks that
I know,
having
I
to get
forgot.
duct taped really messed him up.
I forgot you were such a Yuki fan.
I know. I mean, I have to have something to entertain me.
Well, I feel like you have a lot of good McLaren performance this race.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Daniel was up in fourth at one point in the race. He was doing very well. Lando was down and God knows where at one point. Did end up coming back up the grid. The big controversy during the race was obviously Daniel was experiencing a really good race. Lando worked his way back up the grid. There was one point where it looked like Lando was going to be able to and had the pace for the last couple laps to pass Daniel, and essentially team orders were no, stay where you're at. Lando was a little disappointed that he wasn't able to pass Ricciardo. And in the heat of the moment, right, I understand. Drivers are there to race, and he's come out since then and been like, hey, look, I get it, completely respect team orders. At that moment, I was just wanting to race, want to do well, but at the end of the day, it was the right call for the team because we were in a position where we were going to win or get on podium. You know, his goal in his mind is always to do the best that he possibly can, to get the most points, to do the best possible for McLaren. But I mean, if you look at the whole race, it's not like Daniel didn't deserve to do well. Like, he was racing a lot better for most of the race than Lando was.
And they were helping each other throughout
Yeah.
the whole race. So I think that's why at the end, Lando wanted to get past him. But Daniel had helped Lando before, something
Yeah.
like that. But that was the first time I've ever heard Lando be that aggressive on the radios. I literally have in my notes beef between Norris and Ricciardo.
He was snippy.
Yeah.
He was talking back to his engineers, basically being like, well, you need to go talk to the team principal and like almost being like, let me talk to your manager.
Yeah, he kind of Karen'd.
Lando is Karening his engineer.
You know, I get it. Like, last year, it wasn't even really like he was doing so much better. Like, he really had the favor. He was out in front from a lot of the race. He was in third in the Drivers' Championship for a hot second there last season. Not a great look for Lando. You know, maybe he's still affected by his tonsillitis.
Oh, yeah. The McLaren boys need to get along.
And I think they do, and I do think that's one area where it's easy to play up the drama.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, in the heat of the moment, they wouldn't be F1 drivers if they weren't competitive.
And that's one thing that's come out since the most recent season of Drive to Survive is they did play up some of the drama between Lando and Ricciardo when he first joined. They both came out and said, look, like, we are good friends now. We just, like, weren't familiar with each other to begin with. And, you know, we're supportive teammates. And I think Ricciardo's been a pretty supportive teammate with everything that's gone down this season so far. Not that he's really been in a place where he's trying to pass Lando, but I mean, he's been pretty gracious when it comes to letting Lando have the spotlight.
So as our second Ricciardo fan, what were your thoughts on his performance this race, Maria?
I love Danny Rick. I think he's got a great personality. I don't think he should have ever left Red Bull.
Ooh.
See,
I think that...
It's like a carbon copy. This isn't even fair.
Listen, he just has not performed... Like, he has never lived up to the expectations of what he could have been. I feel like he's always kind of mid-tier driver, and it's like, I still love him as a person, but I don't cheer for him as a driver.
You don't cheer for him during the race?
I kind of forget about him. He's in the middle of the pack.
You know, that's kind of fair. Yeah.
You know,
okay.
it's like, throw him down there. I pay attention to the top dogs.
Wow, okay. Carbon copy.
We have silent people at the table. Sorry, Jack.
You know, it just hurts a little bit, but I mean, if I were faced with that decision too, knowing that I would always place second to Max, I mean, I would have probably like tried to risk it to see if I could do better. If that was never going to be an option, because let's be real.
Oh, he's gonna get sidelined for sure. We're
Oh,
like
for
Checo?
sure.
Yeah.
Checo's like throwing his elbows out a little bit. And I think Red Bull came out and said something along the lines of, we'll let Checo go for the championship. I don't think at this point in the season
it's too soon to call.
it's too early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maria, how do you feel about a Checo championship run?
I'd love to see it. I really would. I think Max is a little cocky. I would like to see a little bit more of a humble man up on the podium. I think, like, I get Max is more of a quiet guy, but, like, you're in the spotlight. You got to do the media. You got to kind of be a little bit more. He's got a cold personality, and I think that's one thing that, like, I think Checo brings to the table that Max does not.
So you're rooting for a Checo championship. You think you'd throw your weight behind him?
Yeah, Catherine and I may go neck and neck for who's taking the Red Bull win here.
Ooh, I love this little roomy rivalry.
Mm.
Okay, so
Spicy.
scratch everything I said about wanting to watch races with Maria.
If Max wins, fine. It'll be like, congrats. But if Checo wins, that's a big win.
Have you decided that Red Bull is officially your team? Because you can have favorite drivers and not necessarily be in love with the team.
Mary wants to talk about Vettel right now.
No, I'm just saying, like, I'm not like, oh my god, I love Aston Martin, you know? Like,
Not a Stroll fan?
I think if I actually legitimately started cheering for Lance Stroll, Jacq might stop talking to me.
Is that
I mean,
Vettel's
that would be
teammate?
it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. I wouldn't root for either of them at that point. Anyone associated with him is lost
Well,
cause.
I mean, Daddy Stroll owns the team,
Yeah.
so.
Daddy Stroll ain't going anywhere.
I will say,
What will you say?
What will you say?
Let's hear it.
you know, I've been hyping up AlphaTauri and their media presence. They have great TikToks, great reels.
They do.
Aston Martin coming on the scene.
Really?
They've been making some fire talks.
I have not. I've seen Alfa Romeo. I feel like the Alphas have been the TikTok Alphas. You know, like you got the AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo. They're killing the social media game.
That was one cheesy plug.
Yeah, it was.
Guys, I have like the humor of a Midwestern dad. Okay, like it's not good. It just is.
Jacq, are you telling me you're watching TikToks of Lance Stroll?
No, I follow all of the Formula One teams that have a TikTok on my For You page. Like it'll pop up. But I haven't been watching Winds of Stroll. I forgot I even
So when
followed
you can't
Aston Martin.
sleep at night, just scroll over to the Aston Martin
Don't
page.
talk to me right now.
Watch Lance.
Sleeping with Stroll.
Oh, Maria! Oh, God. That sounds like a terrible reality show. Like, I'm picturing, like, some cheesy, like, Canadian bachelorette version, but it's just Stroll. Sleeping with Stroll.
I usually like Canadians, but...
And we're actually on to Canada next week. So the gals will be watching again from an F1 bar here in Chicago. And it's on at a decent time of the day, so we
Thank
won't be
God.
getting up early. I think we're all very happy about that.
Well, thanks so much for listening this week. We love having you here. For a link to all of our socials, you can check out our website, gridgals.com. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you have any questions, comments, just want to say hey, you can email us at gridgals@gmail.com.
And thank you so much for listening again. That's the checkered flag for this session. You can catch us back here on the grid next week.